to episode 5 of BBL Supercoach Watch. So Shaun and I finally made it. We're here in person. We've been promising this for a while, but we finally get one in. Shaun, quick intro, a couple of days out from the big bash.
Yeah, hi. It's so, this is it. This is what we've been planning for. This is what we're here for. It's kind of weird to sort of look at both the camera and at you, and it's not the same thing anymore.
It's kind of cool because I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can just see like a multicolored blob where I am. And I can obviously see you right here. So.
I mean, I'm less exotic in terms of sort of like clothes colors than you are.
This is kind of the only wash shirt I have at the moment. So 2 weeks into my India trip and I'm struggling.
Perfect start of the podcast, by the way. Anyway, this was kind of like one of the. It's just fun. Like, we're excited to do this. You can tell. Like, it was. This is it. Like, this is what we were building up to. But yeah, Supercoach chat. Okay, so we're here. Got together to record this week's pod Monday. Sort of. It's about 4 days away from the start of the Big Bash now. We're actually less than 4 days.
3 days. Less than 3 days.
Less than 3 days, yeah. And going to start at the GABA. It's the Heat and the Stars, and we're here to talk a little bit about it. I didn't really title anything, title the sort of, I didn't suggest a theme for the episode as I've been doing in the past. I just said, looking ahead to game week, looking ahead to round one. And that's pretty much where we are. And I think with just 3 days to go until the start of the comp, this is that just felt right, because I think there's been news over the weekend. We've been playing around with our teams. I know a lot of people, also on our Discord, etc. People have been talking about the Big Bash a little bit more. People have started make their teams, put those teams together. They had a weekend to have a free run with the task, and now we are so close.
Oh yeah, well, a couple of things that I wanted to say. We've got a few things that Shaun wants to go through. A couple of things I wanted to say at the start. Obviously, Google Wiki Linktree, the podcast that you're listening to, all our data tools, all our preview articles, they're all free for BBL Supercoach. So please check that out. But I think from my point of view, chatting to a couple of the guys from our team, our 2 new marketing guys, and a couple of the guys on our Discord, they're all playing BBL Supercoach for the first time. And I think it's funny, I've played both NRL and BBL, Fantasy, Supercoach, whatever, for over 10 years. And for me, it's I just need that one hit of a couple of podcasts, a couple of articles, and bang. I feel like I'm caught up with what's going on. But with one of the marketing guys in our team just sent through his first team, and he's got Moses Enriquez and a couple other guys. And I'm like, oh, it's so different from what a lot of experienced Supercoach players go with. But I thought, if you are playing Supercoach, if you're listening to this, and maybe you've tried playing other forms of Supercoach and you're playing BBL Supercoach for the first time, or you might watch cricket, you might punt on cricket, but you've never done Supercoach before, any of that stuff, totally fine. Just come onto our Discord. Obviously, we're more than happy to help you out. But also, the article that obviously Shaun's written and a lot of other content that we're doing, we're going to try to sort of help you out more specifically if you are playing for the first time. And I think the key couple of things that when I sat down to do my team, because it's really easy talking about all this different stuff, but if I put myself in the shoes of, oh shit, it's 2 days from the Big Bash, I need to make my team. I think the things that help, Honeyball's calendar for the fixtures. So if you don't know what double game weeks, triple game weeks, and buys and stuff are, that's the number one thing you need to know, because it's not consistent. Different BBL teams have more or less games in every single Supercoach game round. So you need to understand that. Honeyball's calendar does a great job of explaining that. There's the availability calendar, again, by Honeyball. And there's obviously, as I said, podcasts and articles by Wiki, Honeyball, SC Playbook, Daily Telegraph themselves. There's a really nice, shout out to them. And also another Podmasters, have sort of done a really good job getting a few of the main content creators in the BBL Supercoach space and putting out content. And I think a lot of that is just honestly, it takes 15, 20 minutes to soak up as much of this content possible and make up your first team, and then chuck it onto our Discord or any others that you're a part of, and we can give you feedback straight away. Because what kills me is when people don't know what double game weeks are just yet, or people don't understand that there's going to be players unavailable. A few of the guys had test players in their team, and obviously the guys are playing tests and not BBL. So anyways, if you are making your team for the first time, we do have stuff to help you out. And we're more than happy to do our bit. So anyways, should we get into everything else that we have planned?
Oh, one thing really quickly before we sort of dive into it. I'm the last person to pass judgment on anyone putting in all kinds of outlandish or left field picks in the Supercoach team. This is just my second year playing the game. That's exactly what I did my first year, by the way. It was all John O'Wells and what's his face, a Colin de Grandhomme, and
so much cringe right
now. Hey, they were so maybe not well so much. I think he had a pretty quiet year last year, but I thought de Grandhomme did all right. I mean, I felt like I look back on that experience now and I sort of try to process it in light of a lot of what you said during the pods that we've been recording together, which is actually like probably the first time I actually heard somebody who's played this game for a long time talk about it at any length, because during the actual season last year, we were just so busy with everything and there was no time to actually talk about it. But now I actually got to hear what you had to say about it. And I've also realized that, it's like that Colin de Grandhomme pick is such a classic example of me trying to be too clever, which is something that you would warn against. And anyway, so
I think it's just like, I will say one thing, I guess, like in Australia, like you grow up punting and playing fantasy and all that kind of stuff. So the way that I got into, Supercoach or whatever, like the one key thing is don't try to pick the best cricketers or the cricketers, think about like the roles that they play in the team. Usually top order batsmen, key bowlers, or proper all-rounders that will bat and bowl enough other guys to go with. And your sort of middle order batsmen or like your bits and pieces players usually are a no-go. Like that's such a really simple rule for people to follow if you're playing for the first time. And I was just going to say, before we get cracking into the points that we have, if you notice a bit of a blur or like a fog in the background, it's not filter, it's just the Delhi pollution. So if you if you do notice that, we were looking this up yesterday, but the what's AQI stand for again?
Air quality index, I think.
Air quality index, So we looked up Delhi because our data guy Himanshu said it was a good day in Delhi, and I think it was like 250. And we were like, I wonder what Sydney is.
He's not wrong. I mean, 250 is a good day.
A good day, but the AQI in Sydney is 5.
5, so
it's like smoking a pack of cigarettes a day or whatever. But anyway, let's get straight into it. What are we starting, Mr. Shane?
Yes. So like literally the first bullet point in my notes says final thoughts, early strategy notes, and latest news just a few days out from the Big Bash. So let me just read it out verbatim because I don't think I could put this any better. The more I think about it, the more I think you shouldn't think too much about it. The Heat's conflicting commitments have ruled out several picks for you. Pick the ones who are left. Start with 2 stars, keep some strikers on the bench, bring them in for the stars in round 2. It's just, and I've been playing around with my team. My conviction has grown. Like, just don't overthink this. Especially with, I think, a lot of clubs, at least with the Heat, like half your decisions are made for you. Your stars, you have to like bench them in 2. Don't carry too many. That's 4 clubs that's already taken care of. So your Heat, stars, that's 3 clubs rather, but that's 3 clubs already taken care of, your Heat, stars, and your strikers.
I think the one thing I would add to that is literally we're part of the Podmasters group chat and we've got our own Discord, BBL Supercoach chat, Honeyball and sort of Supercoach, like news is streaming in every few hours from the PM's 11, Abu Dhabi, and all the franchises are putting their latest mail in, and like things are literally changing by the hour. So if you're a normal person with a normal life, you're probably not keeping up with all this stuff, but we are. And it is, what is it? It's Monday evening Sydney time. It's less than 3. There's less than 3 days till the Big Bash, and every hour we're getting news on availability. So there's no way that you're expected to keep up to date with what the hell's going on. We're doing a podcast tomorrow, by the way. It's going to be a live pod most likely to literally get you up to date with everything that's going on. But I think, in terms of decisions being made for you, that's literally what's happening. Like hour by hour, like news came out just before we recorded that Harris Ralph is most likely going to be playing game 1 for the Melbourne Stars, which is huge. They're on the double. No one was considering him because he was likely not going to be playing, and now he is. So literally every hour we're finding something out. So
this just like there's a lot that will change in the time between probably when we're recording this pod and when you guys see it. There's stuff that I'll add to the article a little bit later. There's a few days to go. Things are going to change. I'm going to add updates. There's just a lot. There's a lot to sort of keep track of. I think the general strategy notes that we're sort of going to dive into, those are fine. Like you can sort of stick by those. But I think with the latest new stuff, that's going to change quite a bit, I think. So just don't overcomplicate with a lot of the things. Just maybe you can leave it until late to figure out which 2 stars you want, but don't make it more than 2 stars because of the buy. That's kind of my thinking here, that your broad plan should be in place, let's say the day before the Big Bash, but maybe not to go into like maybe not to lock in your players too early.
Well, I like how you said 2 stars because I had Maxwell and Stoinis in my team in like my sort of first proper draft that I made this weekend. And I think Harris Ruff is 125k in the game. I remember it was like a pretty cheap price. So what I think I'll end up doing is pissing off Stoinis, bringing Ralph in just for a little bit of excitement. Because if Stoinis doesn't bowl, then he's just basically like a really good middle order batsman. So I'm just like, I'm happy to sacrifice that for someone like a Harris Ralph, which I think at least will be a bit more of an interesting play. But if there's chat around Stoinis is likely to bowl, then that makes it another interesting decision. Anyway, as you can see, like every hour something's happening and there's news coming out. So obviously we'll have all that stuff on socials, but what we'll try to do now and obviously tomorrow is like unpack as much of it as possible. In terms of strategy stuff, so one quick point that I'll make, I'm not sure if this was in the plan, but I'm going to say it anyway. Looping, like to loop or not to loop. So in the pod we did last week, I think it was, we went through, was it the week before? It was in the last
captaincy pod.
Was that 2 weeks ago?
That was a while ago.
It was a while ago. Okay, sure. So we discussed what is the VC captaincy loophole. I won't go through all of that again, but it's basically you set one player as your vice captain. If they do really well, you captain a non-player to lock in that score. There's a bit more to it. You can check out one of our previous pods. But so I think Shaun at the moment is most likely not going to be doing that. And I think I'm going against the grain a little bit. Surprise, surprise. And I've got Nikhil Chowdhury in my team from the Hurricanes, who is unlikely to play round 1. We don't know for sure, but if he doesn't play, then he's the perfect BC loophole option in terms of like a non-playing captain to lock in Munro, who's currently my my vice captain, and you get 2 looks at 2 looks at Munro theoretically. Like you get 2 looks at a Heat player before the Scorchers play their first game, which is what I've sort of penciled in. So like a potential Jai Richardson or an Aaron Hardy or a Berendorf or a Ty or whoever really. You get 2 looks at Munro. If he flops twice, then you've got the option of capturing a Scorcher, for example. So I'm almost, well, you know what, like I don't have the, I guess, capacity or like to digest all the news and then make strategy decisions. So I'm almost definitely gone with Nikhil Chowdhury as my one, out of my whole squad, he's the only non-player to enable the vice captaincy loophole. But I think Shaun's not going with that, right? You're just going to go with your
man,
picks.
I wish I could answer that with some kind of confidence. But I'll figure it out. I've mentioned before that I love to captain bowlers because it's always just they need 1 wicket to save their entire game, even if they've been trashed in 3 overs out of 4. They come back, take 3 cheap wickets at the end, and suddenly that round's looking a whole lot better with the captaincy. But I don't think that's really the case with the Heat right now, where I'm not really comfortable captaining any of their bowlers at the moment. Combination of the guys who will play the 3 games, I don't think have that high a ceiling. The guys who won't play the 3 games have the high ceiling, but they're rotating risk, injury. It's difficult, which is why I might go to Munro just because he's a bat who's probably going to play 3 games. We know he's going to play the first game of the triple now. He landed in Brisbane, sort of sent an Instagram story as well. So there is a lot more change that is yet to come, I think, in our teams before Thursday.
Well, sorry, I was just going to say, like, when I had a look at, so Shaun and I quickly had a look at each other's teams. We'll do a little bit of a team reveal tomorrow, but I noticed that he had Steve Smith in here. And I've currently got De Kock as my captain, and De Kock won't be playing the first couple of games, by the way. So he's gone skis because they've got the double straight up. Makes no sense to have him in your team. So I've got to change my team. And I was shocked when I saw that Shaun had Steve Smith. Do you want to? I don't think he'll be super popular. So just for context, Steve Smith will be playing the first game of the Big Bash. The Sixers have the double, but that's it for Smith. He goes off for the Test series. At 267k, what made you pick Steve Smith?
The first thing, my first motivation was, elite player. Just one. I can see like him returning more in 1 game than some others can in 3, and I just thought maybe I won't stick with this by the time the first game rolls around, but what if? Can I find a way to get him in the team? Well, there's a few reasons why. So I should also point out that it's a bit of a long-term play as well, because Smith in the first game he makes the transition to short in round 2 much easier. I thought I definitely want to, and it's like a general sort of good practice to just keep a price point in your team in round one, because just don't overthink the early rounds. Short's going to be mass captained into. Just leave a price point in. If you're not starting with Short, just leave
Matt Short, by the way.
Matt Short, by the way. Yeah. So just leave a price point in your team somewhere, just so that you can make the transition to Short in round 2 easier. If you're not starting with him, Steve Smith he achieved that. He helps achieve that, but also like just on his own merit, I think. And I put this in the Supercoach Watch article, the round 1 Supercoach Watch article, that man, he plays the Renegades on Friday at the end of this week. He just needs to not do anything rash against Zampa, and he's golden, I think. I guess the other sort of problem is, what if Renegades bat first, get rolled? Even if Smith opens the batting, stays not out, how many will he really get?
Yep.
Will he get 51 not out? That's it, in a chase, like a small chase. Like there is a lot of risk involved in this.
Well, I really hope that Shaun does go ahead with this, because I take a lot of calculated risks, and for me, I disagree with like almost all of that, which is no surprise to anyone. But for me, like I wouldn't pick Steve Smith because he's 267k.
No.
That's my main. I get the whole he's a placeholder for Matt Short thing. But at 267k, picking someone who's only going to play one of 2 games and also he's a batsman, which means he's even more boom or bust. Like if he's a bowler, as you always say, give you a bit of a flaw, right? So, like just playing one game, and also it's not that he's playing one game; it's that he's gone after that. Like you have to trade him out.
He'll come back, I think, like next month.
Yeah, like it's irrelevant.
Too far away. Yeah.
So he's a must trade. He only plays one of the 2 games. And he's 267k. So I almost think there's a tiny chance I'll consider this, but I almost think if you're going to do something like so out there, why not go a Marnus Labuschagne or a Khawaja? In that they're significant. I would assume both of them are significant. I'm pretty sure they're both in the 100s. Because Labuschagne had a crap season last year.
Yeah. They are cheaper, much cheaper.
Yeah,
sure.
so
100%.
like my thought process would be like, if you're going to go a massive pod, potentially look at one of them. But again, I just wouldn't do any of it. So if Shaun does do it, it'll be an interesting talking point.
Yeah.
Because I have seen him in 1 or 2 teams. Not to say that no one's picking him.
I mean, this is just some food for thought for the whole Smith debate. To start with Smith or to not. Yeah, it's just like I think we should just sort of keep going on with that.
It's going to be interesting because I'll definitely have my version of like. So I know QDK wasn't a pod by any stretch of the imagination, but I think captaining him might have been a little bit of a pod. So that I don't know, but like that was going to be my little bit of do something different. I was going to VC Munro, captain QDK, high class like
not that
elite
far
batsman. And obviously like there's multiple captaincy options, right, with the double, but that was going to be my like trying to do something a little bit different, but going with like an elite top end talent. But obviously that's gone out the window now, so I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board. I think I'm also going to have to this is getting away from the topic a little bit, but between Kane Richardson and Tom Rogers, between those 2 Renegades quicks, I think I'm going to have to pick one of them, because I had Richardson, then it turns out that he was injured, so I picked Rogers, and then it turns out that Richardson only had a niggle and he played the last game, I think, in that India-Australia series, or at least there was talk that he would.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to pick one of the 2. Anyways, we'll move on a little bit. So you had, well, obviously you spoke about the QDK, the de Kock injury. What's your take on the Renegades? Because I think that's the next point.
Yeah, Renegades. Okay, so just, man, like it's part of the whole, there's updates every hour.
Yep.
Like it's maybe again wait and see, I guess, with some of these things. But I'm looking at my notes now, and it says de Kock will miss the round 1 double. Who does this create an opportunity for? Whether it's in your team in the wicketkeeper spot or in real life at the Renegades. And there's options. I put out a poll a little bit earlier today on Twitter about like de Kock's out, who's your wicketkeeper replacement? A lot of people seem to say Billings the last time I checked that poll.
Bilbo.
I think.
I love that nickname.
Yeah.
Bilbo.
Yeah. So I've sort of explained in the article why, like, like I'm a little bit hesitant about committing to Billings for the wicketkeeper spot, but okay with committing to him for the batter spot.
Yep.
But I think there's obviously options there with Josh Inglis and Philippi there, and I've made cases for them both in the article. There's just too much to go into right now, but I think.
Oh, sorry. There's also Joe Clark.
Yeah. So there's you can go to Sam Harper as well. He has the double in round one. Like it's like there's no shortage of options. I think there with the whole wicketkeeper spot. But I think what's happening at the Renegades is a bit more interesting, where like you're trying to predict like which of these opening batters is going to like he's going to play, like he's going to have the double, because if you back the right horse, you'll have doubles in 1 and 3. And you'll have like 5 games in 3 rounds.
Yep.
And like you get on this guy early, and I think you nailed that pick essentially.
Yep.
But we don't know who that pick will be. I think we're still trying to figure it out.
Yep.
Some people think if Fraser McGurk, that this is his chance to sort of get that spot. Maybe do you think will they promote Aaron Finch back up to open? But I think he's kind of set in that middle order.
Yeah, I'd probably want like a coach quote. And I think like there's obviously like quite a bit of media leading into the BBL. I think if it is Fraser McGurk, I think we might see like a quote just kind of announcing that. I don't know. Like we had a crack at Predict 11s, and we're going to be putting those out on the pod tomorrow. So I think if it is Fraser McGurk, I think it'll be pretty obvious. Like it'll be out there in the news somewhat. There's almost like Shaun Marsh. It's almost like no one knows. Does he exist?
Yeah.
Like, where is he? What's he doing?
It's so funny. I read such a cryptic line on Honeyballs. Like they were sort of talking about the Renegades 11, and they said Shaun Marsh retired from state cricket at the end of last season. Hasn't been playing some other forms of cricket. Might have an injury. It's just so it's just so
I think
crowded.
All I know about Shaun Marsh is that he was at a bar in Bali having beers while Mitch got his century. And that video was all over social media. So from the beers in Bali, the best part of 4 or 5 months ago, to now, he could be in a retirement home or he could be playing great cricket, and no one quite knows. We'll figure that out. Well, I guess Ben from Moneyball will likely be the one figuring that out. But I just had a quick look, and the cock is 180k. And I've just bloody forgotten. But I think Joe Clark is about 130 or so. So that might be the other sort of slightly potty move for mine, because just as much as you were sort of paying out the Renegades a little bit just then, I actually like they're like a classic Nicole team to like, where they have a few all or nothing kind of players, or like they've got a few players that show potential, will likely end up doing crap, will get your hopes up, but it will likely not make the finals. So I think I'm going to go. So Billings, just quickly, with Pearson out, Billings will have the gloves for the first couple of games. Pearson's out for the PM's 11 game. Same thing with QDK being out. Now Joe Clark gets the glove for the first couple of games. And I'm all about value, that little sneaky bit of value. So I'm actually super keen to potentially have Joe Clark in my keeper spot for QDK. Get those 5 games out of him in the first 3 rounds. Potentially 2 or 3 of them at the start with the gloves as well. I haven't made a decision on that. I'm obviously just shit talking live on the pod at the moment. But potentially for me, Rogers in for QDK opens up about 50k worth of cash to try to upgrade someone else for me.
I think Madison said something about dropping himself down the order.
Madison.
Nick Madison,
Interesting. Like a quote
but,
somewhere.
I think it was something Honeyball posted. Can't remember exactly now, but if that means maybe that clears the way for Shaun Marsh, I quietly think he could be a good pick.
I just think it would be odd for Finch and Marsh to both play and both get top 3 or 4 positions. I think ultimately,
I think that's exactly what happened last season, because Kapil was just really unreliable. Wells didn't have a good season. I was just looking at the numbers. I mean, last year Shaun Marsh played 29.67 balls in innings on average. He bats long. He didn't play a lot last season, but he's competent. He'll grind out his runs. Not grind out his runs, but he'll bat long and he'll get them at about 130 SR. So I think he's somebody who I had him in my team last season as well. And he, like, my only sort of thing is, it's been a while since he played cricket. I think he's just like,
well, you just don't know.
It's just like if I kind of knew, like, if he's going to open, great, fair enough. And it's just like, I feel like there's an opportunity there, but it's just like, I don't know if too long has passed since his last game, or that he'll be able to sort of get those numbers consistent. Like even if he's got like not even a high ceiling, like a mid, like a high floor. It's even like a mid floor. I might be interested to look at that with 5 games in 3 rounds.
Well, the problem is he could still be in Bali. So. sorry to move away from the
but yeah.
analysis. But he could.
Yeah.
No, but okay. So my problem is we were trying to think of predicted 11s for the Gades. So we had, let's just say De Kock's back, right? So game 3, got De Kock, and then any one of, so De Kock, there's Finch and Marsh, there's Fraser McGurk, there's Mac Harvey somewhere in the middle there, and I feel like I've skipped Maddinson as well.
Maddinson, Sutherland.
Wells as well. So there's 7 batsmen to fit into 6, and then there's Sutherland at 7. So basically, there's just an absolute cluster of batsmen that could fit anywhere. So for me, it's like I'm not really keen to take the gamble. I've got Fraser McGurk on my bench, I think, at the moment, and I have one of Kane Richardson and Tom Rogers in my bowlers spot. And I may have Joe Clark, because I remember I wanted to have a lot of Renegades in my team because they play the double in 1 and 3 and they don't have the buy in 2.
Yep.
Whereas I've already got Stoinis and Maxwell. I might take Stoinis out for Ralph, like I just discussed. But yeah, it's messy. And I think unless we see a quote saying, Shaun Marsh will be the batting this tournament for the Renegades or whatever. I love Shaun Marsh as a bloke, as a batsman, but at this age and with not knowing much about him, I'd probably try to steer away. But the other thing I will say is I can't imagine Shaun Marsh batting at 4 or 5.
Yeah,
he's very much like a top 3 guy.
He's got to play. He's opening.
Yeah. Whereas with Finch, it's just like he could be doing anything.
He batted at 4 last season, got a few 50s, etc. They might be willing to try that.
Maybe I'm just jaded after betting on Finch unders so often for the last 3 years of watching those bets win.
Okay.
No, sorry, go.
So one thing about the sort of round 1 schedule and the sort of stuff that's come up, one thing, and we sort of kind of alluded to it with all the chaos at the Renegades and the sort of uncertainty there is, with so many teams on doubles and there's one team on a triple and there's no teams on buys, we're sort of starting to confront this possibility. And I think if you made your team, you've probably confronted this at some point, that just there's somebody from some team you're going to leave out. You're going to have to leave out. I don't think you can cover the Renegades, Stars, Scorchers, Sixers, Heat, batting and bowling with equal sort of cover it to equal degrees. One of those departments from one of those clubs at least is going to miss out. In my current team, I don't have any Scorchers batting cover and I don't have any Renegades bowling cover yet. I'm trying to find a way to fix that. But what do you reckon? What do you think from off the teams that are sort of doubling and tripling? Who's batting or bowling do you think in the first round we could probably go without?
Oh, so that's interesting because I actually don't really think about the game that way. So I'm not saying it's the wrong way to think. I'm just when too much stuff is thrown at me, I try to go to the simplest, the option to build my team. So if I look at my team for now, for example, my first priority was to get as many Heat players as possible that will play 3 games. So at the moment, I've got Munro, Billings, Josh Brown, Spencer Johnson, and is it Paul Walter? It's Paul Walter, isn't it? Yeah. So now with this bloody Nisa news, so Nisa's been ruled out of the PM's 11 game and could be playing for the Heat.
Good is not good enough. Sorry.
He could even be playing the first game. So it now makes Spencer Johnson a potential resting option, which
especially with his injury,
really pisses me off because I was really keen to have him for in my team, and at 125k I probably still will. But sorry, just to answer your question, so I've got 5 Heat players. I've got a Scorchers bowler and an all-rounder, the obvious Stars picks, and then and a couple of Renegades. So I guess I'm missing out on the Sixers completely. And I'm doing that on purpose. Josh Philippe would be one that I'd definitely have, but they've got the double in round 1 and then only singles after that for the rest of the season.
No buys, no doubles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for me, that's I don't want Sixers in my team. I don't need Sixers in my team, and I can't find a Sixer that I desperately want in my team.
There you go. That's where you're not sort of covering up, right?
Yep, and it's also Hobart. So I think Hobart's the same. They have no doubles, and they've got one game.
They have one double in 7.
Well, that's
but
excellent.
that you don't have to worry about that right now.
So with Hobart, there's no reason to have their players in your team right now. With the Sixers, I'm saying that there's no reason I want them in my team right now. And what's the other team that I'm missing? So I've got a couple of strikers on my bench, which they'll have the double next week, and I'm really excited about both of those picks. So I'm happy to have them there.
Yeah.
And I feel like I may be missing one other team, but the Thunder, and I've got 0 Thunder players. They don't have the double.
Fair enough.
I don't think they've got any doubles for any.
They've got a double in 4 from what I remember.
Sure.
Okay. Well, worry about that then.
When we try to make the predicted lineups, we couldn't even find 11
Thunder to put on there. Yeah.
To put on there. So I'm very comfortable with the ones that I've left out. I think in terms of like spreading the load of my current team, I've got a couple of Renegades, a couple of Stars, 5 Heat players, and a couple of Scorchers. And I'm very comfortable with that mix.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about like batting and bowling, and I never do. I guess that's my mix. How about yourself?
No, that's fair enough. Like I just kind of mentioned, I don't have any Scorchers batting cover or any Renegades bowling cover at the moment. Those are both things I want to fix. I'll try to figure out a good way to fix them, but I think it also depends to an extent on how hard you're willing to attack that Heat triple. Because if you have like 5, 6 Heat, let's say for example, then there's only so many of everyone else that you can get in, which means that the amount of sort of areas that you're not covering, that increases. So you might not have Scorchers bowling, you might not have Sixers batting, you might not have Renegade batting, whatever. So, and what I'm sort of trying to do right now is I've got my sweet spot with 4 Heat players. I'm trying to sort of find a way to cover the absences that currently exist in my team. But this is something that I think will depend very much on your team by team, depends on who you have and who you're okay trying to go without. I think it is a bit difficult, I think, to sort of try and predict like who's going to, like which team's batting or which team's bowling is going to just do badly, and therefore you should steer clear of them, especially when you're talking about doubles where teams have 2 chances. So you get rolled for 110 in the first game, you'll put on like 180 in the second game, which and overall I don't think that's a bad place to be in with a double.
Yeah, and I think like I was actually chatting to Shaun about this, where like for the article that he's written and some of the analysis that we've been doing, he's been looking deeper into venues and matchups and stuff. And I think it's really fun from a content point of view. And if you do have the time, obviously we've got the data tools, so you can help yourself to a lot of the stuff that Shaun's been putting out there himself. But I think for me, just early on, like in that first, let's say like 2 to 3 rounds of the competition, there's so many unknowns with the PM's 11, the T10 comp, the Aussie test squad, injuries as well. That's like 4 levels of complexity. So for me, it's just like deal with what you have. Like you have no idea at this point which teams are going to do well. The venues as well. I noticed there's like a couple of random venues even in the first round. Like it's not like every team's playing at their traditional home ground. I feel like I saw like GMHBA Stadium or something or whatever thrown up. So
Scorchers are playing Renegades there.
Exactly. Yeah. There's just like so many unknowns. I feel like this is the season, as Shaun alluded to at the start. Just like stick to the basics and get your initial team right with as many players that are bloody on the par and you can trust to actually play. And you mentioned a good point around the Heat. So my personal attitude is I'm pretty confident I'm going to go with like a non-player to loop. I'm also pretty confident that I want to attack that Heat triple as hard as I can. And when I say as hard as I can, I'm now bloody realizing that if Nisa's potentially going to come back in, that means that Spencer Johnson could be a threat. And that's one thing I definitely don't want. I want players that are going to play all 3. So I still don't want I don't want Kuhneman in my bloody team. So I'm going to have like a real good think about it. But if we're kind of off the, like, Spencer Johnson's probably the only player I'm happy to take a risk on that he might only end up playing 2 out of 3. Pretty much any other Heat player, like obviously Monroe, we know he's going to play all 3, but any other Heat bowler, I can't think of wanting so badly that I'm happy to take the risk on them only playing 2 of the 3. But I love Spencer Johnson, love his bowling, love his I think he
fantastic role in the team.
Fantastic role in the death bowling percentage.
Like he's like by a mile, he's the Heat's most regular death bowler. And you know that whoever's going to come in bowler the death, whether it's Paul Walter or anybody else.
Yeah.
They're going to partner him. They're not going to replace him.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm more than happy with that. So I'm relatively happy with most of the things in the team.
Yeah.
So I think the last thing that you had on here was
about who you want in singles.
That's right.
Yeah. So like really important to emphasize that round one is not the be all and end all. There's more rounds after this, even though it's a shorter season.
Like
yeah. But I think it's also a good time, as I sort of made a note about, just to sort of identify the players in your squad who you would want, even if there wasn't a double or a triple, because that's going to be most of your players after round one until round 7, when I think 3 clubs double: Hurricanes, Scorchers, and somebody else.
Cool.
So who are the guys in your team who you absolutely would not look at in a single?
Oh God! Don't say that. I'm looking at half my team.
Yeah. So just to sort of make plans to ship them out over the course of the next few weeks, especially for the ones who have buys and have singles on the other side. With the Stars, you can bench them because they have a double on the other side.
Yep.
And I think with some guys it's very clear, and this is very important for your Sixers picks in particular, because they have a double now and they don't double or buy again until the end of the season. So you could potentially have them for a very long time and it'll just be singles. If for any reason you start, and I think with the Hurricanes and the Thunder don't have this problem as bad because they don't start with a double. Thunder double later. I think they have 2 doubles later in the season. There's 1 in 4 and 1 in 9, I think, right at the end. And Hurricanes just have the 1 double. So with the Hurricanes and the Thunder, it's not as big a problem, certainly, because to start with.
Yep.
But with the Sixers, it is, because you're not going to start with Hurricanes and Thunder. The only time you're going to get them in is when you're trying to attack those doubles.
Cool.
Because there'll always be somebody else who's doubling in those rounds. There'll always be a Strikers who's doubling. There'll always be a Stars or a Renegades. And you won't sort of get in, you won't have to confront this question of, oh, which Hurricanes players do I like even in a single? Which Thunder players do I like even in a single? Until like round 4 at the earliest. And with the Sixers, you'll have to confront this question right now.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's funny, like we've had a pretty stop-start attempt at building my team, but I think this podcast has kind of helped me realize that although I don't, like Shaun and I usually have quite different approaches to building our team, thinking about things in the way that you've just mentioned has made me feel more confident about my team now. Because I think like I'm going to go even harder on my opinion of, I don't usually plan too many weeks out. I have this approach of like tackling, like in NRL, for example, I will tackle the first few weeks because it's 27 rounds.
27,
right? So this is like 9 rounds. So I'll probably think about like attacking pretty much round 1 really hard, which I already pretty much have. And for example, like you just mentioned, the Renegades obviously double in round 1 and 3. The Stars have the bye, but they also double in rounds 1 and 3. And now looking at my team, I have only 2 Renegades in my starting team. So I might actually take out one of my 2 Scorchers and replace them with another Gade to go even harder on that like early round period. And the reason why I've gone so high. I've gone so hard on my Heat picks is because they've got the triple, and I'm all about playing the numbers game, and just like I would back in 3 games of these players versus I think what you said with Steve Smith. That's like exactly the opposite of my mentality. Like I'll never almost back in one guy on 1 game. I'll always go that no 2 games, give him more opportunity and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So my attitude is the opposite. I'm building for round 1. If there's an opportunity to think about round 2 or 3 buys, I'll take it. But I almost think of, let's build your round 1 team. And then I know that like I generally won't want many Heat players, right? So my theory is I'll build for round 1. I've got 5 Heat guys. I'll put out at least 2 of them for 2 strikers for round 2. So I've got 2 strikers on my bench. That'll make it 4 strikers, doublers in round 2, and I think I've got to buy after that.
Strikers? Yeah. 3.
So maybe I won't do that. Maybe I'll only bring 1. Whatever.
He'd have a buy in 3 as well, so you'll have to ship or bench them by then.
Whoa! Don't tell me that. All right. Well, I'll have to think about this a little bit more deeply. But all I'm trying to say is that I'll basically be going from Heat to strikers. Say like 2 of my trades might be for that. And then the other one can be for like, well, I guess to make a whole team because I'm going to be running myself into trouble. But the last trade would be like more of a who is underperforming or who's a gun that I've missed or whatever it happens to be. But if the strikers and the Heat are both on a buy in round 3, I will need to reconsider what I just said. But yeah, like I essentially just attack early, attack the fixture, and the players kind of almost take care of themselves then, because you're not left with a massive pool of players who you really want from these teams by the time that you've kind of taken a closer look at the fixture. Whereas I noticed when I looked at Shaun's team and our two new marketing guys, they've kind of obviously made the team more so on, you know, players. For you, it's obviously you follow BBL a lot closer now, so you know the players and the roles a bit better. They've kind of looked at, well, these are the players that I like more. Whereas for me, it's like, okay, let's play the rules of the game, the fixtures, the doubles, etc., and then sort of pick within that.
Yeah, I think there's always, just to sort of add to that, there is a solution that exists in that fixture calendar. I think there's exactly what you just mentioned with the strikers and the stars. There's stars double in 1 and 3 and in 5. Strikers have a double in 2, but they have a bye in 3. The solution here is like really clear. It's start with stars, bring the strikers off your bench for the stars in 2, put the strikers back on the bench or trade them out in 3 when they have a bye. And I think just use your bench a little bit more. I think there's opportunity here, which is why maybe if you have like a bench that's just full of cheapies, like 42k, 62k, 70, like it's just maybe it's just another way to think about it. I'm not saying it's the right or wrong approach, because it also depends on the players you want to start with. Like nobody's going to argue against you starting with the Jai Richardson or Shaun Abbott, like guns who are just like, who will command like pretty hefty prices. But like that's part of the reason why my bench is not completely bare bones. Like there is like a Tanveer Sangha in there. There is a Peter Siddle who sadly, like, he won't play all the games, so he's not like a great pick for the round 3 double. So maybe he won't play both games. I try to find a solution there, but just have something on the bench, because I want to use that bench to navigate the buys very clearly. Like it's so like the clear solution for me is to bench Maxwell and Stonis in 2 and bring in my strikers guys off the bench. I'm bringing in Matt Short anyway. I might bring in Wesley, or I might bring in somebody else. I'm like, I have Thomas Kelly on my bench. He has a double. I may as well play him this round. You know, I think it just maximizes it gets that little bit extra out of your bench into your starting 11.
That's that is detail that I had not thought through. So I think that's too much. That's a great point. So I think like having a little bit of a deeper think. I think I'll have to look at my team in a little bit more detail, because I think I was really happy with what I had until you mentioned, because I've gone the opposite way of like going quite cheap on my bench. And that was only to put together, like, again, just attack the first round. But in doing that, I've now got like for example, one guy I'm looking at sacrificing now is an Aaron Hardy at 178. Just because he may not bowl very much with the current Scorchers team that they have. And I don't want to be paying 178k just for a really good batsman. If I can replace him with like a slightly more affordable Renegades player, that opens up a little bit more money for me to be putting on my bench. Where I've got I'm still going to be stubborn with my my loop enabler, but I think potentially elsewhere I could put in a player that could actually help me in future rounds rather than handicap me, which is that's probably what I've got at the moment.
No, I'm just like, think about like some of the doubles later in the season, like Thunder double in 4. If you start without any Thunder, there is, especially with all the doubles and the buys in the middle, there's a decent chance you'll walk into that round 4 double with no Thunder at all in your team. And maybe if you have even a Tanveer Sangha on your bench and you're starting from 1 Thunder rather than 0 Thunder, maybe that'll help you a little bit in your league. Maybe that'll help you a little bit in your overall rank. Just having that extra player, just something to think about. I think, like, listen, if you put all your eggs in the round sort of 1-2 basket, you start with Jai Richardson. He hauls in the first game. I end up looking like a complete idiot. Didn't take too much effort.
I think
but anyway.
The other thing around the different fixtures, like round to round, I think it was the SC Playbook podcast, where they made a really good point around like your trades every single round, right? So from memory, you could pretty much do 3 trades every round, but then you'll run out, I think it is, and you've obviously got the boost as well, right? So my thought process was like, they made a good point around how to plan your trades. Theoretically, you could have 2 of your trades from going from double game week team to double game week team, for example, and then 1 to like fix a bad player, like get rid of a bad player or go for that player that you really want and you really need that you haven't already got into your team. So I think I generally did like that, but I think even in our NRL season, because I've been so like I just really want to constantly strive for top 1% teams now.
Mm.
And if you go really hard, you can get yourself in a position where, like, if we hadn't had this conversation, I would have ended up with a ton of heat and strikers. And round 3, I wouldn't have had a full team.
Yeah.
So like, I think just like, yeah, that's probably the only thing that I'll try to be wary of. But otherwise, I'm happy to keep sort of going all in early on, just because I've kind of played for a few years and I've had so many years of trying to be fancy early on, and then just like never getting close to a top 1%. Whereas now the game I have found is a lot more fun when you go hard. Well, for me, it's a lot more fun when you try to get that like top sort of 5 or 10% rank in round 1 and 2, and then try to creep up. Because in years gone by, I've kind of like tried to play the long game and sort of play it fancy early, and find myself my seasons kind of just petered away, and I've never really had a crack at those top rankings. But anyways, we'll see how we go. So obviously today it was a much broader ranging conversation. Finally able to do a pod in person. Tomorrow we'll have the 2 of us and the other couple of people in our team here in Delhi as well. And it's essentially going to be me and Shane putting a 5-minute timer, going team by team, talking you through every single player from every single squad. And if one of us don't have the answer to, are they injured, are they in this squad, what's going on with them, we're going to give it out to one of the 2 marketing guys to do some research while we keep talking. It'll test their knowledge out. They're both new to the job. So we've essentially told them we're going to give a pop quiz to them live. So we'll see how that goes. But all the data tools that we've been referencing, our league as well, like our league code, I think we've got, is it 120?
128.
128. So we should have cracked 130 by now. Remember, every 50 people. So when we get to 150 people, we're going to add another $50 onto the prize pool. So if you're not in there already, obviously just check out Google Wiki Linktree, check out the articles. It's all in there. But we'll catch you in less than 24 hours, less than 3 days for the big match to start.